Welcome to the Tanya. We're going to learn today, yesterday's Tanya, Sunday, the 16th day, and today's Monday, the 17th day of Cheshvan. So, let's begin with tzedakah. Gedele tzedakah, shematayavas, esegeula, tzedakah brings Mashiach closer. So this, we're going to learn the chapter 28, letter 28. And this is a letter the Alter Rebbe wrote to his colleague, later became his mechuten, his in-law, the great Tzadik Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Bardichev, after he lost his son, Rameir, and that was a very tragic loss, of course. And the Alter Rebbe, in this letter, he writes a letter of consolation. The previous letter 27, was, as you remember, the consolation that Alter Rebbe wrote to the Hasidim after the passing of their leader, the Rebbe, Rabbi Nachum Mendel of Vitebsk, of Haradok. And that was a whole, we learned 5 lessons in it, what it means that a tzaddik is here, and so on and so forth. But here, this letter is writing to his colleague, who is a tzaddik himself. And the part that is printed here in the Tanya is the teachings where the Alter Rebbe explains what happens when a tzaddik passes away. So to get consolation, comforting, is not just making the person feel good, but really explaining what is the real thing, what happens. Yes, of course, it's painful, certainly losing a child, God forbid. But Alter Rebbe gives us the deeper meaning of the passing of a tzaddik and what it accomplishes in the world, to the family, to the entire world. So in this letter, the Rebbe begins with explaining why, what our sages tell us why in the Torah there's the story of the passing of Miriam, the sister of Aaron and Moses. And that story is written in the Torah right after the story of the mitzvah of the para aduma, the red heifer. And when there are things in the Torah that are written together, our sages always derive that there is some kind of a connection. And the connection, the Gemara says, is why it is written next to each other to teach us that just like the para brings forgiveness, the red heifer brings about forgiveness, so too is the passing of tzaddikim, the passing of the righteous people. In our case, the passing of Miriam. That brings forgiveness. So the Alter Rebbe is asking, why? Why then is it written next to the mitzvah of the red heifer? After all, true forgiveness, we have many different types of offerings, of sacrifices on the altar in the temple. Those are clearly offerings that are about bringing forgiveness. The red heifer does not clearly state that it's about bringing forgiveness. And the red heifer is not done on the temple, on the altar. It's done outside of the temple. So why is it that specifically the connection between the passing of tzaddikim is to the red heifer, not other offerings that bring forgiveness? And Alter Rebbe will explain that indeed the regular offerings bring forgiveness. They bring forgiveness only in unintentional sins. The red heifer was about bringing purification to the most lowest levels of impurity, like when a person becomes impure after being with a dead body. It represents the lowest level of impurity. So that Alter Rebbe explains it in the mystical way, how this, in order to bring such forgiveness and such cleansing, you need to have a greater level of godly revelation to be revealed in order to cleanse that level, that lowest level. And this, the Alter Rebbe will explain how the passing of a tzaddik, what happens, all of the good deeds that the tzaddik did throughout his lifetime, his or her lifetime, and these, all of this is accumulated, and it is there in the highest levels while he is alive, and when he passes away, the neshama goes up. Those activities, those godly lives that he achieved through his actions, and specifically through a tzaddik who does things with mesirus nefesh, giving himself totally away for Hashem, that brings about a much greater level of godly revelation, that brings about the complete transformation of even the lowest level of impurities and darkness. That is what the power of the passing of the tzaddik, the yortzeit of the tzaddik, the time when he passes away every year again and again, when it happens, as we know. And so let's see inside what the Alter Rebbe says, letter 28 in Igeret הקודש. מה שכוסף למחותוני הרב הגויין המפורסם איש אליקים קדוש השם נר ישראל עמוד הימני פרטי של חזק. This letter was written by the Alter Rebbe to his relative by marriage, the famous Rabbi and Gaon, the godly man, the holy man of God, lamp of Israel, pillar of the right hand, mighty hammer. Those are descriptions we find in the Talmud regarding Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, if I'm not mistaken. So, who is this great rabbi? Morenu v'Rabbeinu Rav Levi Yitzchak Nishmasa Eden, Av Bezdin the Kehilas Kodesh Barditchev. Our master of Levi Yitzchak, may his soul rest in Eden, the head of the rabbinical court of the holy community of Barditchev. To console him on the passing of his son, the pious Rabbi Reb Meir, may his soul rest in Eden. And this is where he begins the letter, at least what we have printed in Tanya. Why was the passage concerning the passing of Miriam adjoined to the passage concerning the red heifer? And this comes to teach you that just as the heifer effects atonement, so does the passing of the righteous. So the question is, as we said before, we need to understand there are many other offerings in the Torah what brings atonement, and those are clearly designated offerings for atonement. The red heifer is not so much. Now it needs to be understood why the passage concerning the passing of Miriam was adjoined specifically to the passage concerning the red heifer. Now the red heifer is done, it's not done in the temple. It's not done on the altar, which the altar is an altar of forgiveness. It is done outside of the temple, outside of the Temple Mount, which was prepared outside the three camps, and as such was not a sacrifice proper, except that the Torah calls it a sin offering, but it was not really a sin offering. Now there are many other offerings in the Torah. There is a clear offering that it's called a sin offering. And when a person commits certain violations unintentionally and brings a carbon, it's called a carbon chatas, an offering for the sin. So it should have been close, it should have been written next to this type of offering. And it's not. And it was not adjoined to the passage concerning the sin offering that was prepared within the altar, and as such effects actual atonement. So that is the question, and the Alter Rebbe delves right into the mystical meaning of the offerings, and he explains the whole question by understanding the mystical concept and what happens with the offering on the altar. The offering on the altar, it brings up the feminine waters, the lower waters of the animal soul. Now, what does that mean? It says when God created the world, there was the water, the upper waters, the lower waters. It says the lower waters were crying to Hashem, why are we separated from Hashem? And then Hashem said, the lower waters will be consoled by being used for different mitzvahs, bringing the Nisach HaMayim, bringing the waters and the altar and so on. Now, all this represents something much deeper. The waters is life. There is the upper waters, the spiritual waters, the life that comes from above. There is the lower waters, is the godly energy that is down here in each and everything in this world, but it's concealed, and that's why it cries that it's separated, that it's distant away from Hashem, because it doesn't feel. It is the energy that is concealed within this materialistic world and the animalistic world. Our job is to elevate this water by an awakening from below, realizing we want to be connected to the true source of life. So in a sense, the bringing offerings on the altar represented that bringing the animalistic, the energy that is called from klipas noiga, from that place which is the godliness that is concealed but yet can be elevated. And that is being brought up on the altar, in order that we should elevate ourselves, to have our own sacrifice, our spiritual, emotional sacrifice closer to Hashem. So that, in general, is the mystical meaning of the offering, the sacrifices. Now, the mystical principle of the sacrifices offered on the altar is known from the sacred Zohar from the Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, the Harizal of blessed memory. They are an intent, that they are an instance of elevation of Mayim Nukvim, the feminine waters, a morally initiated spiritual arousal, deriving from the animal soul, which receive its life's force from the klipas noiga. And we need to elevate that to this elevation ascending to the root and source. What is the root and source? The root and source of the animal soul is in the spiritual animals, what it's called in the mystical, in the Kabbalah, it's called the animals of the chariot. In the forms of the four animals of the celestial chariot, which bear the throne, as described in Ezekiel, the face of the ox and the face of the eagle, and so on. So those are the spiritual source of the physical animals. And except that in the source, it is not felt as a separated being. It is felt that is part of the chariot that carries the throne. The chariot meaning that's completely nullified to its root, to its source, the godliness. Now, when this happens, when we elevate the sense of the animalistic soul is being elevated by understanding the offering, we sacrifice, we devote ourselves, we nullify ourselves to our roots, that causes bringing down the masculine waters. Those are the higher spiritual light that is above, that comes down and brings down and unites with the lower waters to create something new, to bring about a godly revelation. As a result, reciprocating this arousal, the Maim Dechurim, the male waters from the benefactor above, are elicited and descend from the level of divinity called in Ezekiel, in Yechezkel, called the man upon the throne, who is also referred to as Malka, the king, and Ze'er Ampin, the bracket of 6 masculine attributes preceding the recipient or feminine Sephira of Malchus. So that's what happens during the service of Hashem with regular offerings. Offering animal offerings on the altar, there is something from below. Basically, it's an arousal from below to ascend, to elevate, to reach out of ourselves, and then there is arousal from above. Similarly, it was also in the fire on the altar. There was the mitzvah to bring our own fire from below, the human fire, we have to bring on the altar, and it was reciprocated by coming down a fire from above on the altar. That represented these 2 concepts: the arousal from below and the reciprocal arousal from above. Now, what happens by the red heifer? Red heifer, when we burn the red heifer, we put the whatever the Torah says, to put the wood and the hyssop, the grass there. Then we mix it with live water, and we make it kiddush mei chatas, sanctifying the water of the chatas, of the purification. This, the Alter Rebbe says, it represents bringing a completely, totally higher level of holiness that is beyond and above the world, beyond and above the levels that is part of the creation. It reaches a much deeper level, and that is why it can bring atonement and purification to the lowest levels of impurity. Continues the Alter Rebbe, Ochem b'sreif sapor aduma in al yedei hashlochas eitz eretz ve'ezeh v'chulu. As for the burning of the red heifer, however, it is an account of the throwing in of the cedar wood and the hyssop and so on, the function of both of which is hamshacha, means drawing down sanctity from above. And moreover, the placing of running water, living water called Maim Chaim, into the ashes. You bring the water down into the ashes. Ashes is the lowest level that was burned, that was left the very last level. And that is called in the Mishnah Kiddush Mechatas. Nikra b'shem Kiddush Mechatas b'Mishnah. This in the Mishnah, this process is called the sanctification of the purification water, of the purifying waters. Says the Alter Rebbe, what is the sanctification of? It's called. He refers to in the mystical Kabbalistic terms. He says vehi b'chinas kodesh ha'elyon anikra b'shem tala dibdulcha. This relates not only etymologically to Kodesh Elyon, the supreme sanctity, and refers to as Tala de Bedulcha, literally the dew of Bedilium. The Torah description of the manna. So what is this talking about? It's called the dew of the Bedulcha. Bedulcha is like a crystal stone. So what is this a reference to? Again, it's Kabbalistic terms, but just to explain a little bit, the dew, the difference between dew that comes down on the crops and the rain. The rain is something that comes down as a result of bringing from the bottom, brings the water from the ocean, brings it down. The rain doesn't come constantly. You need to pray for rain to make sure that it comes. The dew on the other end represents something which comes from above. It does not require, it comes on a constant basis. It comes from a revelation from above. You have the dew in the morning, you have the dew on the crops. So this represents a kind of godly inspiration and godly flow that comes down that is beyond anything that we can reach and achieve through our work. Kodesh in the higher levels, and that's also the concept of the Bedulcha. It is a crystal which is a clear stone, it is beyond colors. All colors comes from it. It has a reflection of different colors, and that was a description of the manna. The manna, the Torah says, "Ve'eina ke'eina bedoilach." The look, the shape of the eye of it, the way it looks, the manna looks like the eye of the bedolach. The bedolach is this crystal stone. The manna was also a similar concept of food that came from above. It's not bread that you have to work on to make it grow. It comes straight from above. It comes on a level which is much, much higher than the world, higher than anything that we can achieve through our work. So this, he says, is connected with the para aduma, the sanctifying of the waters. It refers to the holy waters, the supreme holiness, and the tal abdolach. As stated in the Holy Zoya, that this Tala de Bedulcha is an expression of the supreme Chachma, and Chachma Stima of Arich Anpin. It is the level of Chachma within the Keser, which entirely transcends the world. Chachma is the highest level, the level of complete nullification. And this is from Arich Ampim, which comes above the world of Atzilus. As you remember, we learned about the different worlds. In the level of Keter of the crown. On this level of Chachma and Mochas Tima, it is said in many places in the sacred Zoya that through Chachma they are refined and rectified. The Chachma, being that Chachma is above and beyond and complete nullified to Hashem, that's why he has the power to rectify even the darkest places. And then, when by means of the sanctification of the purifying waters, divine light is drawn down from this level, darkness is converted to light. That is, to the world of tikkun, the world of correction. Which becomes refined and rectified by means of the Meichas Tima of Arich Ampim, in the world of Tikkun is refined and rectified from the world of Tahu, and the breaking of the vessels whose sparks fell into the world of Beriah, Yitzir, and Asi, and so on, as is known. This is why the red heifer purifies one from defilement contracted by contact with a corpse. Even though this corpse is the ultimate degree of impurity and far, far lower than Noga. So that's what happens with the Parah Aduma. Parah Aduma brings about rectification of the lowest levels of impurity, the level of the corpse. And in general, as we said many times, anything that is holy is alive. Things that are dead is something which is connected with something which is the opposite of holiness. Holiness is alive. Connecting with God is living. Continues the Alter Rebbe in today's shir of Monday, 17th of Cheshvan. The Alter Rebbe will continue now to explain that the same thing is with the passing of the Tzadikim. Now it is known, and again we have some Kabbalistic terms, but we'll try to explain as much as possible. Now it is known that Abba, literally father, Kabbalistic name for the sphere of Chachma, draws its sustenance from the 8th mazel. The 8th mazel refers to the 13 attribute of mercy connected with the 13 tikkune dikne of the tikkun of the beard, and number 8 is called the Neitzer Chesed. This refers to very high levels of godly revelation that Hashem revealed to Moshe Rabbeinu, which is above anything that is connected to the world. The Tikkun Neitzer Chesed, this is the taft of Neitzer Chesed that appears in the above listing, Neitzer Chesed la'alafim. He guards Chesed for thousands of generations. So the word Neitzer means he guards Chesed, he guards the kindness. That the same letters, Oisiya is Ratzain. The Hebrew word Neitzer that he guards is composed of the same letters as the Hebrew word Ratzon, which means divine favor. What is a divine favor? Is the Alter Rebbe going to explain that there is the divine favor that is created above, a new revelation that is created any time a tzaddik passes away. And he'll explain why. This is the Eis Rotzen, the time of divine favor, meaning the auspicious time that becomes revealed and radiates in a manifest way from above downward at the time of the passing of tzaddikim of stature, higher supreme tzaddikim, higher level tzaddikim. So what are we talking about? We're talking about levels of tzaddikim that serve Hashem with Mesiras Nefesh. So it reminds me of the what the Rebbe said many times, but the difference between Rabbi Akiva and Avraham Avinu. Both of them were ready to give up their lives for Hashem. But there was a difference. Rabbi Akiva was a great giant, a great sage, but he was waiting for that moment. He always wanted, and he said, when will the time come that I will be able to give up my life for Hashem? So that is serving Hashem with Mesiras Nefesh, of course. But yet there is the level also of Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu is even in a higher level. Avraham Avinu was not looking to give up his life for Hashem. All he wanted is to do what Hashem wants. If the life needs to be given up, he would do that also. But he wasn't going out to look for his benefit, for him experiencing this godly experience, because it wasn't about him, it was about Hashem. And again, I'm not doing here, giving marks and saying who is what. When he's talking about Tzadik Elyon, I'm not sure that he's not talking about Rabbi Akiva. Certainly Rabbi Akiva was a great Tzadik. But in any case, what he says here, that the Tzadikim, that they serve Hashem with Mesirus Nefesh. When you serve Hashem by understanding the greatness of Hashem, on reaching whatever level you can reach even above the level, what you do, you elevate all of your actions to that level. When you serve Hashem with complete Mesirus Nefesh, going beyond your levels, completely connected to Hashem, what you're doing is everything what you do, all of your avodah, throughout your lifetime, is being elevated to the level which is completely above the world. So it says, Oivdei Hashem be'ava b'mesiras nafsham la'Hashem b'chayeyem arvis v'shachas v'kriyas Shema, who serve God out of love, surrendering their soul to God during their lifetime every evening and morning when reading the Shema. Shal yedei zeh oyomar limayim nukvim le'aba ve'ima b'kriyas Shema kayadua. For thereby they would elevate mayim nukvim, the feminine waters, meaning they would initiate a spiritual arousal, expressing their desire to receive a flow of divine energy to Abba and Ima, to Chachma and Bina during the reading of the Shema, as is known. And the same thing happens when they study Torah. Because the same applies to their study of Torah, which derives from Chachma. This too results in an elevation of Mayim Nukvim, reward toward Chachma. And as a result of this work, they bring down the masculine water from that level called V'noitzer Chesed. Thereby the Mayim Duchim, the masculine waters, which thereupon flow from above, were elicited and drawn down from the tuft of Noitzer Chesed, since it is from this divine attribute that Chachma draws its sustenance, as stated above. And indeed, it is these illuminations that radiate in a manifest way at the time of the passing of these tzaddikim. And why is that? Because everything what they did throughout the lifetime goes up through the lifetime, it's concealed, but once they pass away and the neshama goes up, it's revealed. For as known, all the effort of man, in which his soul toiled during his lifetime, and which remains above in a hidden, an obscured state, this is revealed and radiates in a manifest way from above downward at the time of his passing. Thus, all the unseen spiritual effects of the Tzaddik's reading of the Shema and of his Torah study are revealed in the world below at the time of his passing. And the same thing, by the way, happens every year on that day of his passing. Now you may ask, yes, that this radiation of the Tzaddik, this great light is revealed. But who is it revealed upon? Are we vessels to be able to receive that great light? So the Rebbe is going to say, the power of the revelation of that great light that is revealed has the power to transform even the simple people that are in the lowest levels, to completely transform us and to bring forgiveness for us and to be able to benefit from this great light. So again, now by the illumination from the tuft of Noitzer Chesed, that is revealed at the time of the passing of tzaddikim. The chesed of God radiates from world to world, from the world of concealment down to the world of revelation over those who fear Him. And it affects salvation in the midst of the earth to atone for the sin of the generation. And not just on the unintentional sin, but even the zdoinus, even the intentional sins. Even for the deliberate sins, which are of the three impure klippas that are inferior to noga. For klippas noga can give rise only to unwitting sins, whose atonement is secured through sacrificial offerings. But this can bring also atonement to intentional sins. And why is that? For the mazel of Neitza Chesed is of the moichin stimin of Arich Ampim, meaning the chachma of Keter, which is the source of the task of Berurim, the refinement of the material world, by extracting and uplifting the divine sparks within it. And being that it's above the world, is able to bring down even to the lowest levels and to transform them. The darkness incurred by the breaking of the vessel is thereby converted into the light of the world of Tikkun. This is not the case, though, with the sacrifices that are offered upon the altar. They atone only for the inadvertent sins which come about because of the strengthening of the animal soul, whose life force derives from noiga, as is stated in Hilkot Teref of the Arizal and Parshas Vayikra. And that is why the Alter Rebbe concludes why this story of the death of Miriam was written next to the portion of the Parah Aduma. This then is why the passage concerning Miriam was adjoined expressly to the passage concerning the red heifer, to teach you that just as the red heifer affects atonement, so does the passing of the righteous, because it's a higher level of atonement. And the Yalkut Parsha Shmini for the heifer reads the waters of purification to show that this is the point of bringing the waters, the higher waters from the higher level. And just to conclude with a story that I heard today from Rabbi Reuven Elbaz. He's the founder and the dean of the yeshiva Or HaChaim for Balei Tshuva in Yerushalayim. So he tells a story about the Baba Sali, the great holy Tzadik, Rabbi Yisrael Abu Chatzira. And he asked a bracha for a couple that married, when they were married for many years, they didn't have children. And he came to the Baba Sali, and he couldn't give them a bracha. And they tried again and again. And finally he tells him, please don't come back. I cannot help you. And he came back again with tears in his eyes and says, please, what can we do? We need to help this couple. So the Baba Sali told him, he was thinking, and then he told him, go to, on the day of the yahrzeit of the Or HaChaim, Rabbi Chaim ben Atar was a great sage who lived in the same time as the Baal Shem Tov. And he's buried in Yerushalayim in Har HaZeisim, the Mountain of Olives. He told him, go there, on the Mountain of Olives, at his graveside, on the day of his yahrzeit. and pray your heart out right there, and you'll be helped. And that's what he did. And he came there, and today, Baruch Hashem, this family has 10 children. So the Baba Sali was trying to help. He was looking to ways, and he saw that in his holiness, he is able to see that the gates is closed. There's nothing he can do. But in the Yortzeit of a holy Tzadik, he has the power. Because like we said here in the Yortzeit, this is what happens. All of his activities, all of his mitzvahs, all of his Mesiras Nefesh, they all go up to the highest levels. The levels which is above the world. The levels that even darkness turns into light. That is the power of a Tzadik. And especially in the Yortzeit of the Tzadik. May Hashem help, we should be to be able to see all the tzaddikim here, down here, with the coming of Mashiach very soon. Amen. A wonderful day. I'll see you tomorrow, Mezat Hashem.